I never thought I'd have to choose between my son's life and my husband's family. But there I was sitting in Dr. Morrison's office, staring at an empty surgery schedule that should have had my 8-year-old son's name on it. "Mrs. Parker, I don't understand," Dr. Morrison said, scrolling through his computer. "Someone called yesterday to cancel James's surgery. They identified themselves as his guardian and had all the correct patient information." My hands started shaking. "That's impossible. I'm his mother, and I definitely didn't cancel anything." The color drained from my face as realization hit me. "Please tell me you recorded that call." James sat beside me in his Spider-Man t-shirt, swinging his legs and playing his Nintendo Switch, blissfully unaware of the bomb that had just been dropped. He'd been so brave about the upcoming surgery, even naming his heart condition his special power rather than his weakness. Dr. Morrison pressed a few keys, and suddenly an all-too-familiar voice filled the room. "This is Victoria Matthews, James's grandmother and legal guardian. After seeking a second opinion, we've decided to cancel the surgery scheduled for next week. My daughter-in-law is being overly dramatic about his condition." I couldn't breathe. My mother-in-law, the woman who'd been undermining my parenting decisions for 8 years, had just crossed a line I never thought possible. She'd put my son's life at risk because she couldn't stand not being in control. "Mrs. Parker." Dr. Morrison's voice snapped me back to reality. "This is a serious situation. James's condition isn't something we can ignore. The arterial defect we found won't heal itself, and waiting could lead to complications." I looked at James, his cheeks still flushed from our walk from the parking lot, a walk that left him more winded than it should have. "Can you send me a copy of that call recording?" The doctor nodded, his expression grim. "I'll also give you updated copies of James's ECG and our latest test results. These clearly show why the surgery is necessary." On the drive home, I called my husband David, straight to voicemail, just like the last dozen times I tried to reach him this week. He was at a business retreat organized by his mother's company. Now I wondered if that timing had been deliberate too. "Mommy, are we still going to Grandma's for dinner tonight?" James asked from the backseat. The weekly family dinner, Victoria's way of maintaining her iron grip on the family under the guise of staying close. Usually, I found excuses to skip them. But tonight, I wouldn't miss it for the world. "Yes, sweetheart, we're definitely going to Grandma's." I spent the afternoon gathering everything I needed: the call recording, James's medical files, and 8 years' worth of documented incidents where Victoria had interfered with my son's medical care. Every "it's just anxiety" when he had breathing problems. Every "she's being overprotective" when I took him to specialists. Every time she convinced David I was making James weak by acknowledging his condition. At 6:00 p.m. sharp, we pulled up to Victoria's sprawling colonial home. James rushed ahead, always excited to see his cousins, despite the breathlessness that followed any physical activity. I clutched my folder of evidence, my hands steady for the first time all day. Sometimes rage is more stabilizing than fear. Victoria opened the door in her signature pearl necklace and perfectly pressed slacks. "Oh, Sarah, you came." Her surprise barely masked her disappointment. "We assumed you'd make another excuse." "And miss family dinner?" "Never." I matched her fake smile with one of my own. The house was full of the usual suspects: David's sisters and their husbands, his brother Tom, and of course, Victoria's sister Janet, who served as her personal echo chamber. David wasn't there yet, another coincidence. I was sure. "Sarah," Janet's voice carried across the room. "We were just discussing James's miraculous recovery. Victoria told us you've been exaggerating his condition. But look at him running around with his cousins." I watched my son running around, 3 minutes of play followed by sitting down to catch his breath, his lips slightly blue around the edges. Every parent in this room had been fooled into thinking this was normal. "Actually," I said, loud enough to carry, "I'd love to discuss James's health with everyone, since you're all so concerned." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Sarah, dear, nobody wants to discuss your medical obsessions during dinner. Besides, I have wonderful news to share about the second opinion I got for James." "You mean after you cancel his surgery?" The room went quiet. Even the kids stopped playing, sensing the tension. "I did what any responsible grandmother would do," Victoria announced, her voice dripping with self-righteousness. "Sarah's been dragging this poor boy to doctors, convincing him he's sick, when all he needs is to toughen up a bit. I got a proper opinion from Dr. Richardson. Dr. Richardson, I repeated, pulling out my phone. Would that be the retired pediatrician from your country club, the one who lost his license 3 years ago? Victoria's face reddened. He's a respected member of the community. Well then, let's respect the community by sharing some facts. I connected my phone to the Bluetooth speaker Victoria used for her dinner parties. This is a recording from yesterday. Her voice filled the room, confidently canceling a surgery she had no right to interfere with. I watched the color drain from her siblings' faces as they realized what she'd done. And this, I said, pulling out James's latest ECG, is what my son's heart actually looks like. The defect is getting worse, not better. The surgery she canceled. It wasn't optional. Mom? James stood in the doorway, his breathing labored from climbing the stairs. I don't feel so good. As if on cue, my son's knees buckled. I rushed forward, catching him before he hit the ground, while Victoria stood frozen, her perfect family dinner crumbling around her. Someone call 911. I held my boy, counting his rapid pulse, watching his lips turn bluer. And that's when David finally walked in, his business retreat tan fading as he took in the scene. His son unconscious, his wife crying, and his mother standing there with evidence of her betrayal playing on repeat through her expensive speakers. "What did you do?" he whispered, looking not at me, but at his mother. Victoria Matthews had finally gone too far, and now everyone knew it. As the ambulance sirens grew closer, I realized this was just the beginning of a war I never wanted to fight, but for James, I would burn every bridge in sight. The hospital waiting room was a battleground of whispers and accusatory glances. Victoria had somehow arrived before us, despite leaving after the ambulance. She sat surrounded by her flying monkeys, Janet and David's sisters, already spinning her version of events. She deliberately stressed him out, I heard her stage whisper, causing a scene like that at a family dinner, playing recordings, upsetting everyone. David sat beside me, his face buried in his hands. He hadn't spoken since we arrived, except to give the nurses James' information he barely knew because he'd let his mother handle everything for so long. Dr. Morrison emerged from the emergency room doors, and I jumped to my feet. Before I could speak, Victoria swooped in. "Doctor, I'm the grandmother. I've been handling James's medical decisions. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." "Mrs. Matthews," Dr. Morrison cut her off sharply, "I have the recording of you impersonating James's guardian. Would you like me to play it for hospital security?" She stepped back as if slapped. For once, her perfect mask cracked. "James is stable," he continued, addressing me directly, "but this episode confirms what we feared. The arrhythmia is getting worse. We need to perform the surgery immediately, tomorrow morning at the latest." "No," Victoria interjected. "I want aloe." "Mom, stop." David's voice was quiet but firm. He finally lifted his head, and I saw tears in his eyes. "I saw the ECG results. I saw what you did. Just stop." "Davy," she reached for him, but he stepped away. "I was protecting our family. She's been poisoning James' mind, making him think he's sick." "He is sick." David's shout echoed through the waiting room. "He collapsed in your living room, Mom." His lips were blue. "What more proof do you need?" "Mr. and Mrs. Parker," Dr. Morrison interrupted, "we need to prep James for surgery. I need the consent forms signed." Victoria made one last attempt. "David, please, think about what you're doing. Your sister Emma's boy had similar symptoms at that age. He just needed to build stamina." "Emma's son had asthma," I said quietly, pulling out another paper from my folder. "Here's his medical record, completely different condition. Would you like me to share how you convinced Emma not to get him treated for 6 months? How he ended up in the ICU?" Emma's head snapped up from across the room. "What?" "Oh yes," I continued, my voice steady. "Your mother told the school nurse he was faking it for attention. Said inhalers would make him dependent. Sound familiar?" The waiting room erupted into chaos. Emma lunged for her medical records, Janet tried to intercept, and Victoria stood in the middle, her carefully constructed web of lies unraveling thread by thread. "I have more," I announced, holding up my folder. Every incident, every interference, every time she played doctor with her grandchildren's lives. Would anyone else like to see their children's real medical histories? David touched my arm gently. Sarah, the forms. Right, James, he was all that mattered now. We followed Dr. Morrison to his office, leaving Victoria standing alone in the waiting room, her children finally seeing her for what she was. As we signed the consent forms, David's hands were shaking. I should have known. All those times you tried to tell me something was wrong. I let her convince me you were overreacting. Mr. Parker, Dr. Morrison said, your son's condition is genetic. It likely came through your family line. Has anyone else in your family had similar symptoms? David went pale. My father, he died of a heart attack at 40. Mom always said it was stress from work. I'd recommend genetic testing for you and your siblings, Dr. Morrison suggested, especially if they have children. Walking back to James' room, we found Victoria arguing with a security guard. She tried to get in to see James, claiming she was his medical proxy. Get her out of here, David told the guard. She's not allowed near my son. David Matthews, Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. I am your mother. And I'm his father, David replied. Something I haven't been very good at lately. But that changes now. We watched as security escorted her out, her heels clicking furiously on the linoleum floor, her threats and justifications echoing until the doors closed behind her. In James's room, our boy lay connected to monitors, his small chest rising and falling with each breath. He looked so vulnerable, so precious. The nurse had given him a Spider-Man patterned hospital gown, and despite everything, that made me smile. Mom? James blinked sleepily. Dad, what happened? You're going to be okay, buddy, David said, sitting beside him and taking his hand. The doctors are going to fix your special power tomorrow. Will it hurt? You'll be asleep the whole time, I promised. And when you wake up, you'll be stronger than ever. Like when Spider-Man got his powers? Exactly like that. As James drifted back to sleep, David's phone buzzed continuously with messages from his family. Emma had found more medical records. Tom remembered incidents from their childhood. A pattern of medical manipulation spanning decades was emerging. I'll sleep on the cot, I told David. You should go home, get some rest before. No, he gripped my hand. I've left you alone to handle this for too long. I'm not leaving either of you again. A soft knock at the door revealed Emma, her eyes red from crying. Can I come in? She entered hesitantly, clutching her son's medical files. Sarah, I had no idea about any of it. Mom always said you were. But now I see, I'm so sorry. It's okay, I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. We all believed her lies. What matters is that we know the truth now. Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. Tom and I are getting our kids tested tomorrow. All those symptoms we ignored because Mom said, God, we were so stupid. We were manipulated, David corrected. There's a difference. As night fell, more family members trickled in, not to take Victoria's side this time, but to apologize, to share stories, to finally see the truth. Janet was the only one who stayed away, probably already planning damage control with Victoria. Looking at James sleeping peacefully, monitors beeping steadily, I realized something had been fixed today. Not just the plans for his surgery, but the entire family dynamic. Victoria's web of lies had trapped us all, and it took my son's crisis to break us free. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, surgery, recovery, and undoubtedly more drama from Victoria. But for now, watching David hold our son's hand, seeing genuine concern in his siblings' faces, I knew we'd face it together. James's surgery was scheduled for 7 a.m. At 6:30, while nurses prepped him, hospital security called to report that Victoria was in the lobby, demanding access. By 6:45, she had been escorted out twice, each time growing more hysterical about her rights as a grandmother. We've dealt with family situations like this before, the head nurse assured us. She won't get past security. Focus on James now. As they wheeled our son toward the operating room, David's phone rang. Victoria again. His screen showed 47 missed calls from her since last night. Should I block her? He asked, staring at the phone. That's your decision, I replied, watching James disappear through the double doors. But remember what Dr. Morrison said about genetic testing. You might need answers from her about your family's medical history. The waiting room felt different that morning. Emma and Tom sat with us, their own children at home with their spouses, undergoing genetic testing. Janet was conspicuously absent, probably helping Victoria plan her next move. Around 9 a.m., Dr. Morrison's assistant brought us coffee and an update. Surgery's going well. Dr. Morrison found exactly what the scans showed. They're correcting the defect now. David broke down then, years of denied reality finally hitting him. He really was sick. All this time, Mom said, and I believed. Emma rubbed his back. We all believed her, David. She raised us to never question her medical knowledge. Remember when I broke my arm in 3rd grade, and she said it was just a sprain? 3 weeks, Tom added. You went 3 weeks before a teacher called social services about your untreated injury. She convinced Dad not to press charges, Emma said quietly, said it would destroy the family. At 11:30, Dr. Morrison emerged, still in his surgical gear but smiling. Surgery was successful. James is in recovery. The genetic defect was exactly as we suspected, and Mr. Parker, I strongly recommend you get tested too. This condition often runs in families. Relief flooded through me, but David's face showed a new fear. Could our future children have it? Future children, I whispered. We hadn't discussed more kids since Victoria convinced everyone I was an unfit mother. He squeezed my hand. If you want, without Mom's interference this time. As if summoned by her name, Victoria burst through the waiting room doors, Janet trailing behind her. Where is he? Where's my grandson? She looked wild, her perfectly coiffed hair disheveled, her designer outfit wrinkled. Mrs. Matthews, a security guard, followed her in. We warned you. I have proof, she shouted, waving a folder. Proof that Sarah's been making it all up. Dr. Richardson signed. Mom, David stood. Dr. Richardson lost his license for falsifying records. We know, we checked. And we found these, Emma added, holding up more files. Every medical incident you've covered up. Every diagnosis you've hidden. Dad's heart condition, my arm, Tom's appendix that nearly burst because you said it was indigestion. Victoria's face went from red to white. I was protecting you all from unnecessary procedures. From money-hungry doctors, whoa. From the truth? David's voice was cold. About the genetic heart condition you probably knew about but hid. How many people in our family died young, Mom? How many stress-related heart attacks were really this condition? Victoria's hands started shaking. You don't understand. My father, his brothers, they all had weak hearts. I couldn't let my children be labeled as weak too. I had to protect. Protect us? Tom stood. Like you protected James? By canceling his life-saving surgery. I did what I thought was right, she shrieked. Mrs. Matthews, Dr. Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. He stood in his surgical scrubs, authority radiating from every pore. Your grandson is recovering from surgery that saved his life. Surgery you tried to prevent. I've already reported your interference to the hospital's legal team. I suggest you leave before we add more charges. Victoria looked around the waiting room, at the children she controlled through medical manipulation for decades, at the daughter-in-law she tried to destroy, at the grandson she nearly killed through her denial. For the first time in her life, no one was buying her version of reality. David, she tried one last time. Sweetheart, you know everything I did was out of love. Love doesn't gaslight, Mom. Love doesn't endanger children. Love doesn't. You took a deep breath. Love doesn't do what you did. Please leave. Don't contact us. Don't try to see James. Our lawyers will be in touch about a restraining order. As security led her away, Janet following close behind, I saw something in Victoria's eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of facing consequences. Fear of the truth she'd spent a lifetime hiding. 3 days later, James came home wearing a Spider-Man recovery shirt the nurses had given him. His incision was healing well. His color was better than it had been in years, and his smile was brighter than ever. The genetic testing results came back. David, Emma, and Tom all carried the same heart condition. Their children were being monitored. Lives would be saved because the truth had finally come out. Victoria sent one last email before we blocked her completely. I only wanted to protect our family's reputation. Some things are better left unspoken. David's response was simple. Some things need to be spoken to save lives. Goodbye, Mom. That night, as I tucked James into bed, he asked, Mom, why doesn't Grandma visit anymore? I thought carefully before answering. Sometimes people we love make choices that aren't safe for us. And when that happens, we have to love them from a distance. Like when Spider-Man keeps his identity secret to protect Aunt May. I smiled, smoothing his hair. Something like that. Looking at my son, healthy and whole, I realized that sometimes the happiest endings come not from fixing broken relationships, but from being brave enough to let them go.